The House has come to order. Members will take their seats. Visitors will retire from the chamber. The Sergeant at Arms will close the doors. Members and visitors will please silence all electronic devices. Today's prayer will be offered by Representative Abe Jones. Members and visitors in the gallery will please stand for the prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Representative Abe Jones, the gentleman has the floor for the prayer.
Good morning. Before I pray, I'm just going to read 3 short verses from Proverbs 3. My son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. For the length of days and long life and peace shall they add to thee. Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them about thy neck. Write them upon the table of thine heart. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, once again we pause before we begin our business to acknowledge you as the maker of the universe and our Father. We pray for your servants who are ill, Malachi McCullough, Gollum Pierce. We pray also in this chamber that we will give us 3 things: patience, to listen to one another and consider what we're doing, and also give us insight beyond what we may have ordinarily. And last but not least, looking forward that you will give us vision. And this I ask in your holy name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gentleman from Wayne, Representative Bell, is recognized for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, the journal for April 30th has been examined and found to be correct. I move to be approved as written.
Representative Bell moves that the journal for April 30th be approved as written. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the journal is approved as written. For what purpose does the gentleman from Wilson, Representative Pittman, rise?
For a point of personal privilege.
Gentleman's recognized for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to wish a happy 76th birthday to Malachi McCullough. As many of you know, he has not been here with us for some time, for a few weeks. He has been battling some health issues. I went to the hospital to see him last night and talk to his family, and he was the same Malachi that we have all come to know and love. And I'll just say that I remember when I first met Malachi, it was during orientation. He came over to me and gave me this warm smile, and he said, "We're so glad you're here." And his generosity reminds me a lot of what I saw my grandfather. So we want Malachi to know that we love him, we appreciate him, and I hope that myself and all of us, when we get to that point in life, we will have the strength and courage that Malachi has had. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your kindness. I know his family appreciates it, and we're going to keep praying for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Pittman. And of course, we'll certainly keep Malachi in our prayers, ask members to do that, along with Representative Pierce, both of whom dealing with some health issues. And so we're thinking about them, praying for them, as well as their family and friends. Members, there's a request to suspend Rule 12D for purposes of allowing members to be able to eat on the floor and without objection. So ordered. All right, members, we'll move into the calendar now. House Bill 306, clerk will read.
Representative Pickett, House Bill 306, a bill to be entitled Affordable Housing for Local Employees, the General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Members, the chair understands there's some requests that the ayes and noes be taken for House Bill 306, so the chair will do so. The gentleman from Watauga, Representative Pickett, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is an amendment for this bill.
Gentleman wish to go ahead and take up the amendment?
Yes, I do.
Representative Pickett's recognized to send forth an amendment. The clerk will read.
Representative Pickett moves to amend the bill.
Gentleman's recognized to debate the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this amendment is technical correction for some changes we made in committee. Appreciate your support.
Further, for what purpose does the gentleman from Union, Representative Harper, rise?
To debate the amendment.
Gentleman's recognized to debate the amendment.
This amendment undoes what was done in committee and puts back what was changed, and I ask you to vote against the amendment.
Members, the chair is going to displace the amendment and thus the bill momentarily. We'll move down the calendar. House Bill 56. The clerk will read.
Representatives Pare, Loftus, Singer, and Tyson. House Bill 56, a bill to be entitled Publish Central Office Employment Information, the General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The lady from Wake, Representative Perez, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill is a taxpayer transparency bill. So what this would do is it would require that local boards of education would publish on their website the positions of their central office and the corresponding salaries. Just like any state position, you can look that up on the internet, the state controller's office, and see the person, their position, and what the salary, the compensation is. In this case, it is nearly impossible for a taxpayer to see the positions and the corresponding salary information for their central office. So this would put it out for the public to see if they searched for it, and it's meant to be public information anyway. Ask for your vote. Thank you.
For what purpose does the lady from Wake, Representative Von Haven, arise?
To speak on the bill.
The lady is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad to hear the bill sponsor talk about taxpayer transparency, that we want our taxpayer money to be accountable. But that's why I'm actually glad to hear that, but I think that this bill doesn't do that in the correct way. One, I think that this bill, it's feeding into the narrative that we're hearing at the federal level with the creation of DOGE and the cleaning out of administrative offices across our country, that somehow our administration, especially in our public education system, is bloated, that administrators and staff are getting paid way too much. This bill focuses on central staff instead of putting everybody on this website. It's focusing and singling out central staff in our public school system. It actually doesn't, I love the fact that the bill sponsor wants to have more taxpayer transparency. Well, we're giving billions of dollars to our private schools, but we're not putting their salaries on a website or making sure that that taxpayer money is accountable in any way. So I will be voting against this bill because I think that it's feeding into a false narrative, and I ask you to vote no as well.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Guilford, Representative Quick, arise?
To debate the bill.
The gentleman is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Years ago, when I served on the Guilford County Board of Education, one of our local newspapers used to print the salaries of not only central office staff, but also all school personnel. And the incredible finding was that the people who work the hardest and should make those top dollars, we were finding that in Guilford County at least, that's exactly what was happening, as we had principals who were making six figures, deservedly so. So to limit this just to central office employees as a way to point out bloat overlooks the fact that many of our hardworking principals at large high schools, middle schools, and hard-to-staff elementary schools are making exactly what they deserve. And to fail to print their salaries as well leads into a false narrative that we are bloated in the central office when the people who have the boots on the ground are not being fairly compensated, and that's simply not true.
For what purpose does the lady from Wake, Representative Pereira, rise?
To debate the bill a second time.
The lady is recognized to debate the bill a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I think that the comments that I just heard from my two colleagues actually makes the point that we need to pass this bill, because you have, it sounds to me like you have an opinion about our central offices, or maybe worried about a narrative about our, quote, bloated central offices. It may or may not be true. There's not a way you can determine that unless you have accessibility to actually see what that compensation data is, and this bill will provide that. Thank you.
Further discussion or debate? Seeing none, the question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 56 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Clerk will light the machine to record the vote. 67 having voted in the affirmative and 38 in the negative. The House Committee Substitute House Bill 56 having passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 56 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 56, having passed its third reading, will be ordered sent to the Senate. House Bill 57, the clerk will read.
Representatives Clampett, Bluss, and Goodwin, House Bill 57, a bill to be entitled Adopt State Veterans Museum. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Gentleman from Swain, Representative Clampett, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to extend an appreciation and a thank you to my other sponsors on the bill, John Blust and Representative Goodwin. This bill is a local bill for the Veterans Museum, which is located in the town of Brevard in Transylvania County, one of my 3 counties. This particular bill is to recognize that location for the North Carolina Historical Museum for veterans, to be called the Veterans History Museum of the state of North Carolina. It's the only one of its kind in the state, and it recognizes all branches of the military and also the women's contributions into the military, which I believe we have a Women's Veterans Day bill coming up. This is a free attendance location. They have produced several copyrighted, professionally made videos, 6 in fact, and I've had the honor and privilege of being there twice when the French consulate from Atlanta has come up and awarded the French Legion of Honor merit to 2 veterans at that location. This is a no charge to the state. It would be a boon for them to have and be recognized. There is a general that attended recently, Johnson III, that endorsed that. I would appreciate a green vote unanimously for this. It would mean a lot to the veterans in that area and the veterans all across North Carolina.
Further discussion or debate? Seeing none, the question before the House is the passage of House Bill 57 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Clerk will light the machine to record the vote. 107 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. House Bill 57 having passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Question before the House is the passage of House Bill 57 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 57, having passed its third reading, will be ordered sent to the Senate. House Bill 97, clerk will read.
Representatives Scott, Howard, Tyson, and Honeycutt, House Bill 97, a bill to be entitled Support Firefighters Fighting Cancer. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from Rutherford, Representative Scott, is recognized to debate the bill. The chair sees, though, that there are a couple of amendments. Does the gentleman wish to speak to the bill before we get into the amendments, or do you want to go to the amendments first?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to deal with the amendments first, please.
Okay. Representative Clampett is recognized to send forth an amendment. The clerk will read.
Representative Clampett moves to amend the bill.
The gentleman from Swain, Representative Clampett, is recognized to debate the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very simple addition to that bill, and it takes and adds the word, 2 words, prostate cancer. I can speak directly to that since I am a prostate cancer survivor and having been a firefighter also. Thank you.
Representative Pierce, does the gentleman wish to debate this amendment or the upcoming amendment?
Upcoming amendment.
Okay. Further discussion or debate on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before the House is the adoption of Amendment A1. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. 107 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. The amendment is adopted. We'll now move to the second amendment. Representative Pierce is recognized to send forward an amendment. Clerk will read.
Representative R. Pierce moves to amend the bill.
Gentleman from Halifax, Representative Pierce is recognized to debate the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I want to commend my fellow representatives on the other side of the aisle, Representatives Howard, Representative Potts, excuse me, not Potts, Scott. I'm sorry. A little nervous, that's all. But want to commend them for being receptive to the amendment. Also want to commend Representative Clampett for adding prostate cancer, as that is something that's also very near and dear to my heart. My amendment would add colon cancer, and asking for your green vote. Thank you.
For what purpose, the gentleman from Rutherford, Representative Scott, arise.
To speak to the motion, please.
Gentleman's recognized to debate the amendment.
First of all, what a great compliment, Larry Potts. I thank you. My hat is off to you, Representative Potts. I didn't know you were that good looking. Thank you so much. But I do want to say thank you to Representative Pierce and also Representative Clampett. I meant to mention these are both favorable, friendly amendments to this bill. Thank you so much.
Further discussion or debate on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before the House is the adoption of Amendment A2. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Representative Quick, the gentleman wish to be recorded. Clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. 107 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. The amendment is adopted. We are now back on the bill. The gentleman from Rutherford, Representative Scott, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and I'll try to be a little bit quieter at this time. I do want to say thank you so much to my primary sponsors, Representative Tyson, Representative Honeycutt, but a special thank you to Representative Howard, who not only was a primary sponsor, but personally helped me. This was the very first bill I ever filed, and I couldn't have gotten through the process without her, so thank you to Representative Howard. This bill is, as Representative Clampett said, in some ways very simple. It adds to the line of duty death for firefighters. I would appreciate your green vote.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Wake, Representative Rubin, arise?
To debate the bill, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman's recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you. Let me just add my thanks and admiration. I'm excited to vote for this bill. I think it's it is a simple bill, but it's a bill that will have a hugely positive impact for folks that have served us. The one thing I wonder with this in the future is if we might think about a way to do this outside of the legislative process, like create a system where we can add more cancers as science develops without having to wait on the legislature to catch up. I think what we're doing today is excellent and it's what we should be doing, but I would be eager to partner if we can come up with a system that when the science supports that a cancer should be on this list, then we can get it added before the next legislative session so people can benefit from it. So if there's an opportunity to do that, I'd love to partner on it. Thank you.
Further discussion or debate? Seeing none, the question before the House is the passage of the House Committee substitute to House Bill 97 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Representatives Reeves and Brockman, if the gentleman wish to be recorded. Clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. 107 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. The House Committee substitute to House Bill 97 having passed its second reading and without objection. We read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Question for the House is the passage of the House Committee substitute to House Bill 97 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the House Committee substitute to House Bill 97 having passed its third reading will be ordered engrossed and sent to the Senate. House Bill 139. Clerk will read.
Representatives Balcom, Pickett, Potts, and Ward. House Bill 139, a bill to be entitled Baby Boxes, Newborn Safety Device. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The lady from Henderson, Representative Balcom, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, legislators and those who supported the bill. This legislation expands on North Carolina's current safe surrender laws by allowing a qualified emergency department, fire station, or rescue squad to install a newborn safety device. It's commonly referred to as the baby box. These devices offer a secure, temperature-controlled, and alarm-monitored location where a parent can safely and legally surrender an infant anonymously, no questions asked. This is not a replacement of our existing surrender process, but an extension of it. And it's an additional option designed to protect the life of the newborn while offering dignity and privacy to the parent in crisis. These boxes are already used in 15 states, including 2 in North Carolina, with no reported safety features, failures, or infant fatalities. We are modeling our approach based on the best practice and on current safe surrender laws in North Carolina. I respectfully ask for your support for this bill.
For what purpose is the lady from Wake, Representative Crawford, to rise?
To speak to the bill.
Ladies recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, let me say thank you to Representative Baucom for bringing this bill forward and for the intention here to protect vulnerable infants and through safe surrender and through this extension. I do have some broader concerns about the bill, just around, the idea of placing a newborn in a box and any technical failures. So I look forward to learning more about that. This bill, as it is currently written, does place the burden of inspecting those boxes on DSS workers who are already overstretched and underpaid, and I have some concerns about where that liability falls. They are not trained to manage these devices. I understand there is a process for that. I'll be voting against this bill today, but I do want to say huge thanks and appreciation to Representative Baucom for recognizing the concerns that were raised in committee and willingness to work on this as it moves through the Senate. I look forward to being a part of that.
For what purpose is the lady from Mecklenburg, Representative Greenfield, to rise?
I thank you, Mr. Chair, to speak to the bill.
Ladies recognized to debate the bill.
I also want to thank Representative Baucom for this bill, but I do have some concerns about it as a nurse who has actually received babies in the emergency department as they were being dropped off. If you are not aware, we have a Safe Surrender Act here in North Carolina, and it does basically everything as far as the baby box would do, except that the baby is actually dropped off to a provider. So a human receives the baby, and if there's any concern with that baby, they immediately get medical care. I worry that with these boxes, and I'm so happy to hear there's never been an issue, but that doesn't mean there won't be an issue somewhere down the road. And I worry that if you have a box at a fire station and then the firemen go off on a drill and they're gone for hours, they're not going to be there to hear the alarm, and that little baby could be sitting in that box for who knows how long, to nobody's fault. I believe the most humane way and the best way to handle a sad situation is to follow what we already have in place with the Safe Surrender Act, where a parent knows where to drop off a baby to a fire station, to a medical community, and a provider will actually receive that child. And the child will receive immediately evaluation and care. And then we also may know who the parents are and may be able to speak with them and provide resources. So I appreciate your effort on this, but I just don't think it's the right way to go. I don't think it is safe to put a baby in a box when we already have a law that allows you to drop a baby off with a human being. So I will oppose this bill. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Onslow, Representative Shepherd, rise?
To ask the bill sponsor a question.
Representative Baucom, does the lady yield to a question?
I yield.
She yields.
Representative Baucom, I think in committee yesterday that question was brought up, and you stated that if a box is placed somewhere, there will be somebody there 24 hours on duty. Is that not true? Or there will not be a box placed there?
That is correct. It has to have 24 hours service for someone to be there. So if they don't have that, then they cannot have the box. The other option, and I would like to address, if that's okay, Mr. Speaker.
Lady continues to have the floor.
The other thing is when we actually give it to a person, as she had mentioned, it is optional for that parent to give them the information. We don't always know that information. I will tell you in these boxes, they actually have a packet that the mom can fill out if she chooses to put that information with that child as well. So Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion or debate? Seeing none, the question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute, House Bill 139 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Clerk will lock machine and record the vote. 75 having voted in the affirmative and 33 in the negative. The House Committee Substitute, House Bill 139, having passed its second reading and without objection, will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute, House Bill 139 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 139, having passed its third reading, will be ordered sent to the Senate. House Bill 193, the clerk will read.
Representatives McNeely, Purtle, Miller, and Carver, House Bill 193, a bill to be entitled Firearm Law Revisions. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from Iredell, Representative McNeely, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a simple all-American bill that protects our children and trains our law enforcement officers. No known opposition from any of the usual suspects, so I stand for anything that would be asked, and I pray for your green vote.
Looks like there's a usual suspect. For what purpose does the lady from Durham, Representative Moria, rise?
You stole my line, Mr. Speaker.
Glad to help.
To debate the bill.
Ladies recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you. This bill is incredulous to me, but think about it. Right now, it is a Class I felony for any gun to be brought on educational property. We are taking that concept and making it legal to have a gun in private schools. I cannot imagine any, and I have not heard from one private school teacher saying, I'd sure like to have a gun and the ability to take one on my school. When we have SROs in our public schools, they have 868 hours of training before they can be a licensed SRO in our schools, training on how to handle a gun. And if we pass HB 5 with the changes to carry concealed weapon, without that, a person who is 18 with only 8 hours can have a gun, carry it concealed, and get permission on a private school to bring it on. So that means you can have a senior in high school in a private school getting permission to bring a gun into that school. That's what this bill would allow. Do we really want more guns in our schools? More guns in the hands of people who are not trained? Even officers who have over 800 hours of training, their accuracy rate is about 35% in a high-stress situation. And now we're saying someone with 8 hours of training can be in school grounds. If this isn't close to insanity, I'm not sure what is. We're saying who will give permission. It says the person in legal possession or control of the educational property can give written permission to someone. That's a little bit undefined. I am really worried what this will do. If there is, in fact, an emergency and officers arrive, and they see a plainclothes person who may have permission, they don't know if that's the perpetrator or if that could be a victim. The confusion could be immense. Much less important, but the second part of this provision is about shooting ranges, and it prohibits any locality from allowing 48 hours notice for nighttime operation of shooting ranges within a government locality. We're mandating that local governments must allow these shooting ranges to have 24/7 nighttime shooting training purposes, which I think would upset a lot of people in communities. So, but the first part is the most important. I urge you to vote no on this bill.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Wake, Representative Jones, rise?
Speak to the bill.
The gentleman is recognized to debate the bill.
Well, you know, the first thing I want to say is I want to talk about guns just a little bit. I'm a gun owner. I had a very close friend in college who taught me how to shoot. He was a marksman. He used to say jokingly, Jones, if you ever need me, call me. I'll be available to you. But I learned how to shoot really well from him. And I like to shoot. I like to go to the range. And I'm pretty good, actually, I think. Not as good as some. I'm sure a lot of ex-military guys are better than I. So I'm not an anti-gun guy. That's where I'm coming from. They have a place. I like to hunt. I like to go to the range. So I'm just want to put that out front. Now, unfortunately, somewhere along the way, someone spread the myth that in this country they're trying to take your guns away. That's a myth. It's a bald-faced untruth. Nobody's trying to take anybody's guns. I think the Second Amendment, next to the First Amendment, might be the most well-enforced amendment we have. Going right down, I guess, 1, 2, 3. So the Second Amendment is very, very important and very well protected. But recently, there's been a move afoot that any and everybody should just have a right to buy any gun they want. I guess a guy could walk out of the insane asylum and go to a gun store and get an AR-15. Why not? He can kill 30 people in 30 seconds, probably. So I don't know what the love affair with guns is. I use my gun, I shoot at the range, but I'm not in love with it. So I wonder I asked 3 questions about all the bills that come up here. The first question I asked is, where did this come from? What's the need? Is there a need for this? Are people having trouble getting guns? And I'm not going to be personal about it and ask Mr. McNeely to answer that, but I raised that rhetorically. Are people having trouble getting guns? No. Are people having trouble getting guns to hunt? No. Are people having trouble getting guns to protect their home? No. Are people having trouble getting guns to shoot at the range? No. So in the midst of, unfortunately, people getting guns who shouldn't have them, that's where we ought to be putting some attention to mental health and that type of thing. In the midst of a plethora of guns everywhere, people shooting folks, doing stupid stuff, we want to pass some bills to make it even easier. And I don't get it. I'm missing the point. And I guess my point is in a peace-loving society, in a society where we have a right to bear arms, an important right. We have a right to protect our families, and we are doing that. Is there a need for more? And then another question I ask is there's not a need, then what is the benefit? I can think of the deficits, but what's the benefit? And so there's not a need, there's not a benefit, so why do we need this law? And I bet you 2-to-1, when it passes today, there'll be an overwhelming number of people voting for it. And I think in many instances, people who vote for these laws, they're not doing it because there's a need, but no one dares confront the gun industry. Too powerful. Someone to say, Abe Jones is against guns. Or somebody else. And it won't be true. Not against guns. But that myth and that approach is hurting us. I heard the president of NRA interviewed on a WPTF radio. That's the main radio station in Raleigh, for those who may not know. And he was trying to basically paint a picture that somehow, some way, somebody, somewhere, was trying to take Americans' guns away. It was like a joke. It was like a made-up debate, because no one is trying to do it, and no one is going to be successful doing it. It cuts across all of our society: race, creed, color, the veterans, the non-veterans, the guys who like to hunt, the guys like me. No one's going to take your gun. So, but to make it easier to get more is kind of bizarre to me. I don't understand it. So when you ask that question about why are you passing a law, what's the need for this? And what's the benefit? And I suggest to you that if you ask those two questions, you'll get a negative answer. Thank you for listening to me.
What purpose, the gentleman from Rowan, Representative Warren, arise?
Let's see if the bill sponsor will respond to a series of questions.
Representative McNeely, will the gentleman yield to a series of questions?
I'd be delighted.
He yields.
Thank you, Representative McNeely. This is the first time I've seen the bill, so I just want some clarification so to make sure I'm voting, I almost said intelligently. That would be a first here. This only pertains to handguns, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the individual, as I read items 1 through 4, the individual has to have written permission from whoever the authority is in possession or control of the property, the school?
Yes, sir.
So you can't just, this doesn't just authorize someone who has a gun to go onto the property without written permission?
Exactly. Someone's actually will be chosen. They will be chosen and issued written permission.
Thank you. And this item 1 says this nothing in this subdivision shall be construed as applying to a non-public secondary educational institution, which I understand to be a private school grades 7 through 12. Is that correct?
Actually, this would go K through 12, or pre-K even at that matter.
Okay, I thought you intended it for that, but I found that to be contradictory, and I just wanted a clarification on it. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
For what purpose does the lady from Mecklenburg, Representative Budd, arise?
To speak to the bill.
Ladies recognized to debate the bill.
I might be one of Representative McNeely's usual suspects, because this is the third time I will have spoken about this bill and my opposition to it. Unlike yesterday, I'll keep it short and sweet. We need to always remember that gun rights coexist with responsibility. This bill does not require responsibility to be taken. If I recall correctly from J2, the genesis of this bill was to enable private schools who could not afford security to enable a volunteer to bring a gun to the school to provide that security. The bill does not have any requirements other than somebody giving a piece of paper to that person and saying, you may be that person. Ultimately, what I look at when I look at all these gun bills and this idea of the good guy's gonna save us from the bad guy with the gun, I liken it now to a movie where the cameraman is directing your attention as the viewer. He's telling you a story. He shows you who the good guy is. He shows you who the bad guy is. He shows you who the victims are. There's foreshadowing. You probably have a summary of the movie in your head already of what it's about. The good guy's gonna save the day. What I will tell you is after all these debates and all these years on this very same issue, I have yet to hear a story where the good guy saved the day because he had a gun, unless it is a Hollywood film where the credits are rolling. So this idea that the good guy with the gun is going to know what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and will in fact be recognized as the good gun, I just think it's a fantasy world. I urge you to vote no.
For what purpose? The lady from Mecklenburg, Representative Dew, arise.
Hi there, not a usual suspect. So I want to speak to this just because it's personal to me.
Ladies recognized to debate the bill.
Oh, hi there, sorry. I'm recognized to debate the bill. Thank you. I rise to debate. It's personal to me because I lived in Connecticut and I'd moved before Sandy Hook happened, but it devastated the community. And I talked to my friend David Hogg, who was a Parkland kid who's now a Parkland adult. And unfortunately, as much as we would like to think that this makes us safer, I have to agree with my friends from the Education Committee, but in Maury, I'm just afraid that it doesn't. No need to belabor the point. I agree with all of theirs, and I support my friends who unfortunately had to live through horror.
For what purpose does the lady from Wake, Representative Von Haven, arise?
To speak to the bill.
Ladies recognized to debate the bill.
Excuse me. House Bill 193 is yet another bill that we're debating which tries to address a problem without considering the consequences of an ill-advised and dangerous action. More guns in schools increases the threat to the safety of school children, not the opposite. First, the risk of unintentional shootings increases. More guns means more risk that students and non-authorized personnel can gain access to weapons, leading to more unintentional shootings. This has actually already happened here in North Carolina. In February of 2024, just 2 months after we passed Senate Bill 41, which you might recall allowed the use of guns in religious settings that were also schools, a religious school staff member, a legal concealed carry permit holder, left her handgun in a restroom of the school where it was found by an elementary school student. Where is a kindergarten teacher supposed to store a gun while teaching? Our teachers are already under immense stress and have enough to worry about. We should not have to add to the worry of additional firearms in their classrooms and worry that their students or someone else may gain access to it. Second of all, educators are not trained to use firearms in a crisis. As we heard from Representative Maury, law enforcement personnel have many, many hundreds of hours of training. An armed teacher or staff member cannot, absolutely cannot, in a moment of extreme duress and confusion, be expected to transform magically into a specially trained law enforcement officer. Armed vigilante volunteers seated at a folding table, as we heard in Education Committee the other day, in front of the school is not going to solve the serious problem of violence in our educational environments. Teachers do not want to be armed. They do not want more guns in our schools. Repeated national and state polling have shown that a vast majority of teachers and staff are opposed to bills like this. I haven't heard from a single public or private school teacher or staff member in this state that's in support of this bill. Adding guns on guns on guns to our school environments will only add more carnage. Guns are already the leading cause of death for students and children in our state. And it makes me so sad that we're debating this bill in front of a bunch of students that just walked in to watch this debate, because we are making their school environments less safe every time we pass a bill like this. Our children deserve a safe and healthy school environment in both public and private schools. This bill is the opposite of that. Stop putting our kids in danger, and let's actually address the root causes of gun violence in this state and this country. The first of which is that we have way too many guns in our communities. Stop putting our kids in danger. Stop putting these kids in danger. Stop putting more guns in our communities, and stop making our schools less safe. Vote no.
What purpose does the gentleman from Buncombe, Representative Turner, arise?
To ask the bill sponsor a question.
Representative McNeely, does the gentleman yield?
I'd be delighted.
He yields.
Thank you, sir. On page 3, lines 1 through 4 of the bill, where it talks about local government not prohibiting law enforcement from conducting night operations, things like that, is there a provision for the local government to notify the surrounding communities that night training operations will be happening?
The way that's set up right now, and what the bill actually speaks to, is there's a 48-hour period of notice that can be given to all the local property owners, but it also goes to the local government, which could post it on their website if they choose. That's not in the bill, but it can be done. You have to notice 48 hours ahead of time before you do the night training. To be the officers that we want all of them to be, they have to have night training. And the problem we're running into right now is, especially in my district, but this goes statewide, if an established gun range in a county may have to get moved for some reason, and it went from one rural part of my county to another rural part of my county, but the neighbors there have continuously harassed the training facility for them trying to do their night training. They've harassed them for the daytime too shooting, but especially for the night shooting, and tried to drag them into court, try to drag them all the time in front of enforcement, forest code enforcement, and this gives them the right to do it without being harassed.
Follow up?
Gentleman yield to an additional question?
I do.
He yields.
Thank you, Representative McNeely. No, I'm not worried about the stuff that you're talking about. I'm more just thinking like, you know, anytime there's a zoning variance or something like that comes up, like people within 400 feet get, you know, a little notice or something like that. I'm just saying, would you be open to us requiring, maybe in, you know, as this thing moves to the process, that the local governments need to do it? And again, just because I think about, gosh, like I remember when I was living in New York after 9/11. And it lived through that horribleness. And so anytime that training operations were gonna be happening or someone was gonna be shooting a movie or something like that, they were sure to blanket the neighborhoods that was gonna happen in, so that there weren't a ton of 911 calls or calls for service because people were hearing shooting. For me, this is more of like just letting, you know, people who live nearby, there's gonna be a night training tonight, so when you hear gunshots or flashbangs or whatever, that you're not just clogging up 911 because you're hearing it all. That's really what kind of I'm looking for, is making sure that the cities and the towns or the counties let people know it's happening so they can bring their dogs inside, or, you know, put thunder coats on them, or earplugs to go to sleep and things like that. That's really all I'm kind of looking for here. So as this moves through, can I work with you to maybe add some language for that?
I'll be open to that.
All right.
I can be open to that. Yes, sir.
All right.
Right now, you know, it's usually noticed on the website of the training facility they're going to do it, and they have reached out to do emails to anybody that would like to have their email. So all these things are optional. I hate to regulate any more than I have to. So, but I'll be glad to work with you and talk with you.
Yeah. Just to debate the bill.
Gentlemen, recognize and debate the bill.
This is more just a statement that I appreciate that, because I know like a number of towns that I represent have like they have a text service, or you know, one of my towns actually, it's a little annoying sometimes because they call you and then they text you and you don't have the option to get either the call or the text. But yeah, just making sure that there's some sort of I hate to use the term requirement as well, but some sort of requirement that if municipalities have these systems set up, that they use them for these purposes, just so that people know what's going on. Thank you, sir.
For what purpose, the gentleman from Beaufort, Representative Kidwell, arise?
Speak to the bill.
Gentleman's recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I heard mentioned today that they've never seen a situation where the good guy with the gun appeared and took out the bad guy with the gun. Let me tell you about Jack Wilson in Texas. One morning when church was starting, a man came in and started shooting members of the church. Two gentlemen who were armed at the front of the church stepped up to try to interfere, and obviously were not trained properly. Should have ducked behind the pew instead of standing. And they were shot by the gunman. But Jack Wilson presented his SIG 327 and took the shooter out with a single shot and dispatched that problem permanently. There was a 21-year-old kid who had just gotten his concealed carry permit that was in a shopping mall, a very crowded shopping mall. Just got his permit, had a nice brand new gun that he had not really fired other than at the range to practice. A gunman came into that mall. That young man fired 8 rounds at that shooter. 7 of them were fatal. And he took out the shooter with his pistol at 40 yards. That's a real life good guy with a gun. There was another one down in Texas, I believe it was, where somebody came in and started shooting up at a church on a Sunday morning again. 2 people in the neighborhood took off. One of them had his AR-15 in the truck, and they went chasing this guy down because they knew he was heading for another place to shoot people up. They caught up to him. The gentleman that owned the AR-15 in his pickup truck was a little bit concerned because he only had time to put 8 rounds in the magazine. But he did dispatch that shooter. That's 3 examples. I could go on and on and on of how many times. Matter of fact, the FBI estimates about 2 million times per year legally owned guns are used to defend people in the United States of America. 2 million times a year. Schools, 33 states allow some level of teacher carry. 1 has no additional training or restrictions whatsoever. Any teacher that wants to carry can carry. 8 of those states require some additional training. The rest of them just require permission of the school districts. 33 states, including Colorado, Connecticut, and Florida. A congressional report. Let me get the proper title of it. That is put out by the Crime Prevention Research Center. Reports, and I quote, "Schools that allow teachers to carry guns are extremely safe." Extremely safe. Ladies and gentlemen, it's only common sense that when a bad guy shows up with a gun, you don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight or a stick. You want to bring a gun to a gunfight. Vote green on this bill.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Duplin, Representative Dixon, rise?
To debate the bill.
Gentleman's recognized to debate the bill.
Members, I believe, if I'm correct, I believe this is the first time I've ever made a comment on a bill like this. And what motivated me to say something was 2 things. First, the reference of our school children. And secondly, the statement, and I understand it, and I don't mean this to be critical. There's just too many guns. Guns are inanimate objects. If we were to follow that logic, it seems to me that we could also say, and this sounds so very trite, that we could control obesity by reducing knives and forks and spoons. The problem is that we've got too many bad influences on our children. Too many violent videos that they're watching. I'm all in to addressing those problems. And I think there's room on both sides of the aisle for legitimate discussions. But if we continue to polarize it by blaming the gun, we're missing the opportunity to solve the problem. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Gaston, Representative Hastings, rise?
To debate, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman's recognized to debate the bill.
And the reason that I'm going to take some time about this is because the Second Amendment and gun ownership, those are subjects that I hear people who are more confused about gun ownership laws than probably any other subject. And the reason I'm going to mention these items today is because of the young children who are listening, including my daughter who, when she was younger, I remember we left Blowing Rock and we were coming back through Caldwell County, and we decided to get a Davy Cricket for her. And she said, "Dad, can you just go in and get a firearm?" And I said, "Well, no, not really. When we go in, you're going to have to watch me go through a background check, and I'm going to have to fill out a form under penalty of perjury." And so then we had a former member named Mark Hilton, when I was a young member, asked me to join a bill which added the Castle Doctrine in this state and Stand Your Ground, and it also added some provisions that allowed people to be in different locations if they had a concealed carry permit. And so I agreed to join that and had to learn a lot about firearm laws. And so I just wanted to mention for the young people who might be listening, or people who have never taken the time to really study the state and federal laws, here are just a few examples, and this addresses who cannot legally receive or possess firearms and/or ammunition. 1, a person convicted in any court of a crime punishable by imprisonment for a term exceeding 1 year, a person who's a fugitive from justice, a person who is an unlawful user of or addicted to any controlled substance, a person who has been adjudicated as a mental defective or has been committed to a mental institution, a person who is an alien illegally or unlawfully in the United States, a person who has been discharged from the armed forces under dishonorable conditions. Remember, these are people who cannot legally own or possess a firearm or ammunition. Having been a citizen of the United States and then renounced that citizenship, is subject to a court order that restrains the person from harassing, stalking, or threatening an intimate partner or child of such intimate partner, has been convicted of a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence. And those are just some of the federal laws. That doesn't even include all of the state laws. So I just wanted to take some time because, like I said, I hear more people confused and espousing rhetoric about this issue, but I think we owe it to our young people to hear just how difficult it is to be able to legally own and possess a firearm and or ammunition in the United States. And I appreciate the public's time for listening. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Catawba, Representative Adams, rise?
To debate bill.
Gentleman's recognized to debate the bill.
In the simplest, well, first thing I will say that I have been approached by private schools for the legislation that's presented here. They do want to have the ability for staff to carry concealed weapons because they're concerned. Since the event in Tennessee, their families have been concerned about assaults on Christian schools. Secondly, this is really about deterrence. The bad guys are going to come. They're not going to have permits. They're not going to have any kind of authorization. They're going to show up. And what we're talking about here is offering the possibility that they'll be repelled. That's what this is about. Now, I've offered a different solution and a different bill, but I will support this bill.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Wake, Representative Rubin, arise?
To debate the bill.
Gentleman's recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was not planning to speak on this bill, but I think we've sort of moved to a broader discussion about guns and statistics, and I just can't help but respond to the statement that 2 million people defensively use guns a year. Remember, there's 340 million people in the United States, so that means 1 in 170 people use a gun defensively. So the survey that's based on has been pretty thoroughly debunked, and it's from about 30 years ago. The Bureau of Justice Statistics, that actually tracks this for the nation, thinks it's closer to 70,000, which is just a tiny fraction of the 2 million number that we heard earlier. But more than that, the Center for American Progress has taken that data on crime victimization and has shown that you're 9 times more likely to be victimized by a gun than to use it defensively. 9 times more likely. And then the last thing, to the point that guns are just inanimate objects, they are inanimate objects, I can't dispute that. But I always think of this satirical newspaper headline from The Onion, that said something along the lines of, nothing we can do to prevent this, says only nation
Mr.
where this
Speaker.
regularly happens.
1 second, Representative Rubin. For what purpose is the gentleman from Duplin?
Would the
Representative
gentleman
Dixon Rice.
yield for a question?
Representative Rubin, does the gentleman yield?
I'll be glad to yield after I finish my point. Thank you,
The
sir.
gentleman continues to have the floor to debate.
No way to prevent this says only nation where this regularly happens. And this is the only nation where this regularly happens. We've seen Japan, the UK, Australia. Australia reduced gun possession, dropped their homicide rate with guns by 50%. So we've had a lot of conversations in this body about protecting the public and public safety, but nothing we've talked about holds a candle to what we're doing or not doing on gun safety. So I'll be happy to yield to the question now.
Representative Dixon, the gentleman wish to ask his question.
Yes, sir.
Gentleman's recognized.
Would the gentleman consider that the statement that XYZ or a person victimized by a gun, would it be possible to use in that statement that the person was victimized by a person, not the gun?
Absolutely. I think both the person and the gun are relevant to that conversation, sir. But I think the gun is relevant to that conversation. And again, the nations that have taken action on this have seen their homicide rates drop to a fraction of the United States. And so there's data. We know it can be done because every other industrialized country has done it. Thank you.
For what purpose? The lady from Wake, Representative Von Haven, rise.
To debate the bill a second time.
He's recognized to debate the bill a second time.
Thank you. I want to respond to what I heard about good guys with a gun. I did a little quick research on John Wilson that was mentioned with the incident at the Texas church, and discovered that John Wilson was actually a firearm instructor and had extensive training in how to use guns. He was part of the security team that had trained other people at the church in target practice and different situations, and he had taught firearm instruction for decades. So this was not an untrained person that we're talking about in this situation. This bill does not require that type of training, and that's why I think many of us are adamantly opposed to it. The second point I want to make is that we could go back and forth for days about studies that have been done on guns, and we can pull from, the NRA studies and the Everytown studies and all the groups that do studies on gun violence. But one, I want to say that the Office of Gun Violence Prevention that was established in the federal government was shut down this year. And we know that we do not have nearly enough studies about gun violence and what causes them. But unfortunately, every time we make progress on making studies and learning about the causes of gun violence, those are shut down.
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
Gentleman's recognized for a point of order.
Would the representative keep her remarks to the bill at hand, not studies throughout the country or the world, et cetera? Put her remarks towards the bill, please.
Yeah, chair would request the lady to remain on the subject of the bill as written. Lady has the floor.
Thank you. I was responding to other comments about studies, so I hope that is in compliance with the debate. I will just say that studies show, and I will quote a study, that arming teachers actually heightens anxiety in a school, and that is directly related to this bill. I know that our students are already under a great deal of pressure. They're already experiencing anxiety. And the last thing that we should be doing in this building is passing bills that heighten anxiety for students. Stop putting our kids in danger, stop making our schools less safe, and vote against this bill.
For what purpose? The lady from Mecklenburg, Representative Greenfield, rise.
To debate the bill. I just have
Ladies
really,
recognized to debate the bill.
I really just have one question that I have, and I believe in the Second Amendment. I've had a gun for a long time. But the one question I've always asked my friends who are okay having 18-year-olds not receive training and have a permit, what is the one difference between this country and every other country on this planet? All countries have people who have mental health issues. All countries have people who wake up in the morning and don't feel so great and feel depressed. But we're the only country where our children get mowed down in a classroom and have mass shootings. And that one...
Mr. Speaker, point of order, please.
Gentleman's recognized for a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, would the lady please retain her remarks to the actual text of the bill at hand?
Representative Greenfield, again, the chair, as the prior point of order, as the chair said, please remain on the subject of the bill and not other issues. The lady continues to have the floor.
Just to finish, the one difference are guns. The one difference are guns. Thank you.
The gentleman from Wayne, Representative Bell, is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the previous question.
Representative Bell, having moved the previous question, the question before the House is the motion on the previous question. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. Clerk will open the vote. Pickett, aye. Clerk will lock machine and record the vote. 63 having voted in the affirmative and 44 in the negative. The motion carries. The majority leader and minority leader have 3 minutes to debate. The majority leader does not wish to debate. Does the minority leader wish to debate for 3 minutes or give someone else the chance to debate for 3 minutes?
I would give that 3 minutes, Mr. Speaker, to Representative Morey.
Representative Morey, the lady is recognized for a time not to exceed 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This won't exceed 30 seconds. Just remember what this bill is about. It's about bringing guns in schools, K through 12. Look at your constituents. Look at public polling. 8 in 10 teachers oppose this type of bill. 7 in 10 parents oppose these bills. Finally, one thing that has not been brought up. You want to support your private schools? Then don't subject them to liability of lawsuits that will happen if there is a shooting on a school ground because of this bill.
The question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 193 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. 62 having voted in the affirmative and 44 in the negative. The House Committee Substitute to House Bill 193 having passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 193 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The House Committee Substitute to House Bill 193 having passed its third reading will be ordered sent to the Senate. House Bill 406. Clerk will read.
Representatives B. Jones, Tyson, and Ross, House Bill 406, a bill to be entitled Clarify Motor Vehicle Dealer Laws. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Gentleman from Columbus, Representative Jones, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, this is just the normal 2-year franchise bill that comes before us. It just does clarifications of franchise laws. Be glad to stand for any questions. Pretty simple. There's no controversy and no issues that we're aware of.
Further discussion or debate? Seeing none, the question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 406 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Clerk will lock machine and record the vote. 107 having voted in the affirmative and 1 in the negative. The House Committee Substitute to House Bill 406 having passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Question for the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 406 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 406, having passed its third reading, will be ordered sent to the Senate. House Bill 421, the clerk will read.
Representatives B. Jones, Tyson, and Ross, House Bill 421, a bill to be entitled Motor Vehicle Dealers. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from Columbus, Representative Jones, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, members, exact same type deal here with the DMV for the dealers. It just changes the grace period to get in line with everything else on dealer plates, dealer license from 30 to 60 days, and just does some tag issues so they don't have to renew quite as often, making it less burdensome for our DMV. I ask for your green vote.
Further discussion or debate? Seeing none, the question before the House is the passage of House Bill 421 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Representatives Baker, Representative Turner, the members wish to be recorded. Clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. 104 having voted in the affirmative and 3 in the negative. House Bill 421 having passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Question before the House is the passage of House Bill 421 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 421 having passed its third reading will be ordered sent to the Senate. How does the gentleman from Buncombe, Representative Turner, wish to be recorded as having voted on the bill?
Well, after my seatmate distracted me, I would like to be recorded as voting aye, please.
So ordered. House Bill 472, the clerk will read.
Representatives Branson, Loftus, Sheetzout, and Hawkins, House Bill 472, a bill to be entitled Commercial Vehicle and Cargo Protection. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from Gilbert, Representative Branson, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a straightforward bill that would end two practices that negatively impact the supply chain in North Carolina. Section 1 of the bill makes it illegal to place a boot or immobilization device on any commercial vehicles. Section 2 of this bill would require tow companies to immediately release cargo to the owner of the cargo or their designee. This bill passed through the committees without a lot of opposition, a few questions, so I'd appreciate your green vote.
Further discussion or debate? Seeing none, the question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 472 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Representative Baker, Representative Davis, the members wish to be recorded. Clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. 108 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. House Committee Substitute to House Bill 472 having passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 472 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 472, having passed its third reading, will be ordered sent to the Senate. House Bill 483, the clerk will read.
Representatives Davis, Green, and Carson Smith. House Bill 483, a bill to be entitled Juvenile Justice Legislative Proposals. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from New Hanover, Representative Davis, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, this is a bill that would make changes to the laws related to juvenile justice system as recommended by the Division of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention of the Department of Public Safety. The bill is supported by the Administrative Office of the Courts as well as the Conference of District Attorneys, received favorable reports in both Judiciary 1 and Rules, and I know of no opposition, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
Further, for what purpose does the lady from Durham, Representative Maury, rise?
To ask the bill sponsor a question.
Representative Davis, the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
He yields.
Thank you, Representative Davis. I think there are a lot of good provisions in this bill, but there are many different provisions. And one question I do have is at the end of it, Part 8, and it says that if a person is under the age of 18 and there is conviction, that minor will be transferred for imprisonment in adult correction. Is that correct?
It says it would clarify the place of the confinement for persons under 18 who are sentenced to prison. These changes clarify that pre-file confinement of a person under 18 is in the custody of the division, but for post-conviction imprisonment is in the custody of the Department of Adult Correction. That's what the bill says.
Thank you. Just follow up.
Gentleman, yield to an additional question.
Yes, sir.
He yields.
Thank you, Representative. Is it your understanding that if minors are sent to the adult prison system, that we will comply with the Prison Rape Elimination Act, that there will be sight and sound separation for anyone under the age of 18 that goes to an adult prison?
I can only say that I can guarantee that the bill says what it says.
Okay, thank you. Just to briefly debate the bill.
Ladies recognized to debate the bill.
I am worried about that provision because we do have federal guidelines and federal laws that minors should not be within sight and sound of adult inmates. This provision that upon conviction, if it is a 15, 16, 17-year-old, that they can be sent to adult corrections and there's no safeguard for that sight and sound provision. So I hope that's fixed. I'm worried about that. The other part of the bill, and I hope Representative Davis and our budget people, if we are extending post-release supervision quite a bit, that we compensate and give the resources to the Department of Juvenile Justice to carry this out. They have had a 40% vacancy rate in that division, and if we're doing this, that they need the resources to be able to comply with it. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
For what purposes? Gentleman from Wake, Representative Jones, arise.
I rise to speak to the bill. I just want to...
Gentleman recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you. I just want to join my colleagues' expressions, Judge Morey, that, you know, we do things here and it has effect out there. And I know my colleague, Mr. Davis, knows this because he came out of the judicial system and I mean, he practices it and he knows. I get worried about the inadequacies that we have. I mean, I go in and out the prisons quite a bit still in my practice, and it varies around the state. And I just think that when we do this kind of thing, we need to support our staff people and the others who have to do it, and we just need to do a little better about that. I'm going to vote for the bill, but I just think we've got to do it. Got to do something about that. Thank you.
Further discussion or debate? Seeing none, the question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute House Bill 483 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Representative Blackwell. Gentleman wish to be recorded. Clerk will log machine record the vote. 85 having voted in the affirmative and 23 in the negative. The House Committee Substitute House Bill 483 having passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 483 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 483, having passed its third reading, will be ordered sent to the Senate. House Bill 578, the clerk will read.
Representatives Pickett, Lambeth, Hawkins, and Budd, House Bill 578, the Jason Flatt Act of North Carolina. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from Watauga, Representative Pickett, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill comes before you to try to help with some of our mental illness in our high schools and our elementary schools. This will give our teachers a little bit more training on how to spot mental illness in our children. And we all know from stories we've heard from our school systems that this is something that is needed. DPI is behind this, and it also does not cost the state anything. It does not cost the local governments anything, and it does not cost the teachers anything. The training is free, and they get to keep the training. They will have a portal on the website that they can go back to at any time and watch this training and be refreshed so they can help the children that are needed. And if it's something that they need, they can get further help. I know that we put a lot on our teachers every day, but I think this is something that I've heard from educators. They said that they are more than willing to take this training so they can help their children, because we know that's what they have at their heart, is to help the children every day that they're in that classroom. I really appreciate your support on this today.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Halifax, Representative Pierce, rise?
Speak to the bill, sir.
The gentleman is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to commend Representative Pickett on this bill as a former educator and as someone who dealt with children who had mental hiccups, so to speak, particularly post-COVID. That's when a lot of children really struggled with adjusting back to the rigor of school. We had a lot of disciplinary issues and things of that nature, children self-mutilating, all of that stuff. So I just want to commend you and thank you for this bill. You have my support.
Further discussion or debate? Seeing none, the question before the House is the passage of the House Committee substitute to House Bill 578 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Clerk will lock machine and record the vote. 108 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. The House Committee substitute to House Bill 578 having passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The question before the House is the passage of the House Committee substitute to House Bill 578 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the House Committee substitute to House Bill 578 having passed its third reading will be ordered sent to the Senate. Members, House Bill 612 will be removed from today's calendar and will be calendared for Tuesday. Chair understands members have some consolidation of those amendments, and so the chair anticipates that bill will be taken up Tuesday. House Bill 768, the clerk will read.
Representatives Brody, Cotham, Zinger, and Winslow. House Bill 768, a bill to be entitled Clarify Emergency Communication Exemptions, Fire Code, the General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from Union, Representative Brody, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This is, as the title said, it's an exemption to the fire code dealing with a communication system called responders. This has the approval of the Fire Marshal's office, and I'll gladly explain it if you want, but I ask for your support.
For what purpose, the lady from Guilford, Representative Harrison, to rise.
To ask the bill sponsor a question.
Representative Brody, does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
He yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Brody, I really want to vote for one of your bills. I'm just trying to figure out why we need this exemption.
Thank you very much, and like I said, I'm willing to explain it. It's tailored very narrowly. Can I ask her a question just for clarification?
If the gentleman's done answering, the chair assumes he is, does Representative Harrison yield to a question?
I do.
She yields.
Do you know what a responder is? I'm just trying to get clarification how I'm going to explain
We're not
this.
talking like a policeman or a fireman.
No, okay.
Okay, I don't.
Representative Brody, the gentleman continues to have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and sorry about that. A responder is a device that the fire department generally requires to be placed in buildings so that if the fire department enters the building on a call, that they'll be able to communicate amongst themselves as well as to their people in charge. And it's generally used in like commercial buildings, high-rise buildings, et cetera. And for the most part, the reason they have responders is because of the way the building is built. A standard radio, it can only penetrate so far. So if you go up and we narrowly tail it 4 stories higher, building with metal, concrete, brick, et cetera, you need these responders because the standard radios don't work. The exemption is very narrow. It says a building 75 feet or less made of wood, very important, and they're confined pretty much to multifamily. And the reason we exempt it is because the radios will work because they're made of wood. That's why the exemption is there, and they're very expensive. So if you don't need them, it saves a lot of money, and of course that always translates into the cost of rent.
Further discussion or debate? Seeing none, the question before the House is the passage of the House Committee substitute to House Bill 768 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Campbell, aye. Clerk will lock machine and record the vote. 106 having voted in the affirmative and 1 in the negative. The House Committee substitute to House Bill 768, having passed its second reading and without objection, will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The question before the House is the passage of the House Committee substitute to House Bill 768 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the House Committee substitute to House Bill 768, having passed its third reading, will be ordered sent to the Senate. Members, the chair is in possession of one courtesy the gallery will go ahead and take up. Upon motion of Representative Prather of Buncombe County, the chair is happy to extend the courtesy of the gallery to members of the Triangle Free Thought Society and members of the Secular Women of the Triangle. If you're here with us today, if you will stand so we can recognize you. House Bill 773, the clerk will read.
Representatives Biggs, Cotham, Willis, and Ryan, House Bill 773, a bill to be entitled School Performance Grade Changes. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from Randolph, Representative Biggs, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 773, it modernizes school performance grades. This is something that's been near and dear to my heart. I've heard from all sides, both sides of the aisle, and as my work on the school board in Randolph County and different ones, and heard from counties from all over the state how we need to modernize our school performance bills. Currently, we're looking at just 80% for achievement, 20% for growth, and my bill takes in so many other factors. It takes in economically disadvantaged, it takes in English learners, students with disabilities, racial and ethnic groups. It really gives you a bigger picture of each metric for our children today. And we have been using the grading scale, which has worked for so many years, but this needs to be modernized to be up to date with the current standards and what we're dealing with. If you have a teacher, I'm going to take a couple examples here, that has non-English speaking students, they're doing the best they can, but you cannot be just penalizing them for student outcomes. They don't have interpreters in every classroom, and this is something that we're dealing with. We have teachers here, and I see my teachers shaking their heads. They know. If you have teachers that have students that are missing chronic absenteeism, well, you can't teach a student that doesn't show up to class. You can do the best you can, but we know, and being in the General Assembly, we have to be here every day. We have to be in committee. You have to be engaged. If you're not, you're going to be lost. And today, we want to make sure that we're just doing an accurate picture. We've had this plan has came, just so you know, everybody wants to know, where did you get this from? It came from Florida. This is their plan that they're using currently. We're constantly compared to Florida and Texas, so we're going to use the same metric they have, and it's a proven plan, and I think it really takes into account all factors, and I appreciate your green vote, and thank you for your support.
For what purpose, the lady from Wake, Representative Von Haven, arise?
To speak on the bill.
Ladies recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you so much. I do want to thank Representative Biggs for bringing this bill up because, as he said, I think everyone is in agreement that our school performance grades are not an accurate representation of what's going on in our classrooms. I think this is definitely a step in the right direction, but I think we still have a long way to go. I think we still could create a fuller picture of how schools support students. This proposal still ties our testing and grades, and they're highly correlated with race and income. And unfortunately, this proposal still creates that problem. I think we need a new statewide accountability model. The Leandro plan actually has called for a multiple measure of school success with more emphasis on growth. Last year, or the last couple years, DPI and actually former Superintendent Truitt did a study with multiple stakeholders over a long time, which basically studied this exact thing. And they came up with 4 indicators to formulate school grades, which included academics, progress, readiness, and opportunity. And although this proposal is definitely better than what we have now, I think we still have a long way to go. We know that schools are a much bigger picture than just a score, and if we want to make sure that we are fully and accurately representing their accomplishments. So although I will be voting yes, I hope that we can still work on this issue and create a better system in the future.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Gaston, Representative Torbett, rise?
Question of drafter, please.
Representative Biggs, does the gentleman yield to a question?
Yes, sir, I yield.
Thank you for your work on this. My biggest concern is, although we're adjusting the calculation to present the parents what is believed to be a more accurate depiction of how their school is performing, how does that actually equate down to the performance outcome of the children receiving the education? What do you suspect, or how do you suspect that will help with the improvement of the education level of our kids, and when will we see such accomplishments?
Thank you for the question. So it's going to take in, with all the metrics that we have with student outcome here, obviously we don't want a watered down version. We want to make sure that we're still accurately depicting what's happening in our classrooms. I think it's just going to give a more accurate depiction of what's happening. I think a lot of our students are doing really, really well, and sometimes those grades may not reflect that in the schools. I know a lot in Randolph County, we're sending kids to all sorts of universities. Our universities here local, UNC and NC State, we have a lot of our students coming here doing really, really well. I think the thing that's happened, though, in our society with the influx of a lot of immigrants that have came in, and different ones that have came in, and they're not English speaking, and they have their challenges, as I stated before. And there's a lot of kids with disabilities now, and we did not have the capability years ago of teaching some of those kids with disabilities, but now our capabilities have caught up, and we still need to keep on working on that. But now we have more kids that used to just stay home because there was no option, and now they're able to come to school with disabilities. And we want to make sure that they do continue to come to our schools, and we continue to give them options, but at the same time, that should not be a detriment. That needs to be just another metric and another accountability piece of what's happening in the classroom.
For what purpose does the lady from Forsyth, Representative Baker, arise?
To ask the bill sponsor a question.
Representative Biggs, the gentleman yield.
Yes, sir, I yield.
He yields.
Thank you, sir. This is a great start. And many of you know that I've spent the bulk of my career in highly impacted schools. I no longer say Title I because all Title I schools are not equal. And I appreciate adding additional indicators. But was there some conversation about perhaps flipping the weight of proficiency from 20% to the 80%? And I'm sorry, to flip the growth from 80% to 20%, or to give growth more of a weight. And here's why. It's not just good enough for parents who are parents of low-performing students who often are mischaracterized in terms of not meeting proficiency. But one of the things we realized in our district that our parents of the academically gifted students didn't have a really clear understanding of exactly how well their students were doing, because academically they can achieve proficiency, but when we drill down into their EVOS data, they were alarmed because those students weren't growing. And so this idea of giving growth more weight also gives our parents whose students are already proficient a better indicator of how their students are doing. So was there conversation around that as well?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you for the question. So we've looked at all sorts of angles with this. We didn't do the exact flip with achievement and growth, but I will tell you one thing we did. It's like you had like the bottom 25, and I hate to call them the bottom, but there are people that, based on testing and in our bottom 25, they're putting a more emphasis on growth there to see what they're doing because of the capability. You know, to Representative Von Hagen's, you know, her statement, we do test, but now we have a test, we have a capability standard, now we can see what we can do to try to get those students up. And something I didn't mention earlier, I did mention we had superintendents. So I got my superintendent. I've got superintendents from all over the state. When I presented a section of this last year and we started having this conversation, we started talking about a pilot, we had every superintendent in the state. And I don't want to say that DPI supports it, but they're definitely not against it. They've came in and they're just hoping it gets legs. And what I did, and people told me, hey, this won't happen. This won't happen. But we, you know, it's our job to not sit there and take no for an answer. We need to do an accurate depiction. And if it's not perfect, we're going to keep on working on it. But we want to make sure we're depicting what's actually happened. Are we having success in the classroom? If we're having success, we need to be noting that. We don't need, and I know often, a lot of times when I was on the school board, we would get a superstar principal and we would ask them, will you go into this challenged area? This area here is going to be tough, and we know that your grades are not going to be what you're accustomed to, but we feel like you can handle it. Do you want this challenge? And we would do our best to hold them harmless, because, you know, then their salary would reflect that. We'd tell them, hey, we're going to do our best to hold you harmless. And they would go in and they would take that F school and turn it into a C or a D. And some people look at it and they say, well, that's terrible. No, they took a challenging situation that you have no idea what these kids are going through, and they took them up to a C, and really was amazing. So we're going to make sure we're doing an accurate depiction. We're going to keep on working on it. I think this is a real good start. I use this because it was proven in Florida. It's having real good results, just accurate depicting the metrics. But, you know, I'm up for conversation, but we have tremendous support. I've had no superintendent, DPI, nobody that has spoke against this. Thank you.
Follow-up, sir.
The gentleman yield to an additional question.
Yes, sir.
Again, sir, often 30 years in 6 months, 30 years, and I was what was known as a turnaround specialist. And I was that person that went into those low-performing schools and turned those schools around and then turned it over to the next team. So I welcome being able to work with you on this. My questioning is not adversarial in any matter. And I also would suggest that as we think about how we're going to talk about this to the public, that we put together some type of visual that will show them what was and what will be. Because even trying to wade through this legislation for somebody that has a really good understanding of it, it was hard for me to follow. So that's why I needed to ask that question.
Mr. Speaker?
Gentleman has the floor.
Yeah, and I'd be glad to get you a chart, because I got an absolute breakdown of every metric and how each metric is weighed and the difference between the current and what is proposed. I can give you a chart, side-by-side comparison.
Thank
I'd
you.
be glad to give you that, and that way it'd be easy to pass it out. It's like a one-page handout, and you can pass it out to your superintendents or teachers and let them know.
Absolutely. And again, I offer my input if you need some further assistance as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Durham, Representative Hawkins, arise?
To ask the bill sponsor a series of questions.
Does the gentleman yield to a series of questions?
Yes, sir.
Gentleman
Yes.
yields.
Okay. Yep. These are just questions. No attacks. Just questions. To add on to Representative Amber Baker's question, essentially this feels like a dashboard of sorts from the metrics will be created, and will that dashboard or these metrics be updated per LEA in charter school?
Yeah, and that is one thing. It's going to be, we're going to make sure, we're going to work with DPI, and there's going to be a clearer, more accessible school reporting cards on DPI's website. The data must be user-friendly and show performance trends over at least 3 years. So we're going to make sure, because a lot of times parents are searching for this information and they can't find it. And like I said, DPI's looked at this bill, so I don't think they have any heartburn on it. We just want to make sure they have a clear, transparent 3 years of study of this bill. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And so the deeper question is, because I'm not debating that, because I, especially as I hear from parents with those with disabilities, because you brought that up specifically, that they search to find what school, any parent looks at schools that are doing well or not doing well, but specifically, and this is maybe more of a suggestion, is that while it will be available at DPI, the ability for this to also be available in a dashboard form for those with disabilities, so they can find out how, because you're right, 25 years ago we did not teach them as well as we do today. But the ability for them to find the best place for them is super important, and I think these data points can get us there. But most importantly, if this can be trickled down to every all 115 LEAs and the almost 100 plus charter schools, that will be helpful. My other question is around low performing charters. I see in the bill that it talks about of course that same time period and potentially being met as not meeting expected growth. How, and I know this bill is not the intent for that, but how many times will that be the case before you're recommending that the state take action for that particular charter school? Because I think this data is very, very critical, and that outline could help a lot of people choose and not be disappointed with the educational experience at a particular charter. But I wonder if after that 3-year period, what happens to that charter if they continue to sort of find themselves in that space?
Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman yielded to a series of questions, so the chair does not have to recognize the gentleman again. You may go ahead and answer.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, so school action plans, we have those all the time, and we would kind of leave that to DPI still, to how they're handling that currently, but they do. And I know when we have schools that come up and they're failing or they're struggling, they definitely get on an action plan and make sure they're getting special attention. So I would kind of leave that to DPI still. We're trying to look at the school performance, because they're really good at holding schools accountable. Once they start falling behind, they're going to have to find a way to bring them up, and if not, they come and help them get their grades up. So that would be all traditional and charter schools.
Fantastic. Okay, and then last is the statement again, just to offer the ability to meet with members of the IDD caucus, especially as this goes to the Senate, to start to specific, and this is specific to those with disabilities. Yep. There are so many families that want outline data about each school and performance. So that, to your point, you can help to make sure that you get the right teachers, and we look at the salaries and all those things of those schools so they can be not only sort of academically proficient, served well, but most importantly, that we can provide the resources that are needed, and I think this data helps us get there. So thank you for proposing it, and I offer to be supportive.
I welcome that, and with the students with disabilities, I'd love to work with you on that. We'll get that information on a dashboard. That'd be awesome. Thank you, sir.
For what purpose does the lady from Wake, Representative Cervania, rise?
To ask the bill sponsor a question.
Gentleman yield. He yields.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to preface my question by saying I was honored to serve on the select committee that was chaired by Chair Biggs and Chair Torbett last session. And they brought in a collection of our top experts here in North Carolina when it comes to education, including your superintendent, who's doing an excellent job in Randolph County, and also, as Representative Von Haven had stated, former Superintendent Truitt, who worked extensively with other superintendents and school systems to propose—
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
Gentleman's recognized for a point of order.
Would the lady state her question?
Yes, I will.
Chair assumes there's a question mark at the end of the lady's statement. If the lady will, please go ahead and proceed to her question. Lady has the floor.
Thank you. So my question to the bill sponsor is, why was it chosen to use a system that was in Florida versus the outcome of the select committee that had extensive proof and evidence that we could use when it comes to performance grading in North Carolina?
Thank you for the question. So when I say we use the one out of Florida, it has a lot of the same metrics and same concerns that we had in ours. What we were looking at, so we were looking at kind of a pilot program, what we were doing last session. I filed a bill last session with a pilot program, and it was not all proven, but the metrics that we used in this in Florida, like I said, economically disadvantaged, racial, ethnic groups, students with disabilities, English learners, those metrics were the same ones. Absenteeism was in the bill that we were proposing then, but we wanted to use a tried and true formula that has actually been implemented. Instead of doing a pilot, we're looking at statewide. So we said we're going to start on this, and like I said, we'll take input, especially look at things with students with disabilities, how we can more effectively display their results and what's going on. We're still taking input, but we just want to use a method that we see that was already in action working. Thank you for your question.
Further discussion or debate? Seeing none, the question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 773 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Davis, aye. Representative Johnson, Hostler, lady wish to be recorded. Clerk will lock machine and record the vote. 105 having voted in the affirmative and 2 in the negative. The House Committee Substitute to House Bill 773 having passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 773 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 773, having passed its third reading, will be ordered sent to the Senate. House Bill 789, the clerk will read.
Representative Sheetselt, Chesser, Reeder, and Carson Smith. House Bill 789, a bill to be entitled Mitigating Factor, Pre-Trial Use of Ignition Interlock Device. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from Wake, Representative Sheetselt, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the rest of the body. Far be it from me to want to extend session any longer than need be, but I had a lot of folks that have... Thank you, Representative. I had a lot of folks, though, that have come up to meet with me this week and speak about this bill and why it's important to them, and I feel obligated to say a few more words about this bill than is necessary for us to vote on it, so if you'll just indulge me for a couple of minutes. As a young law clerk early in my legal career, I spent a lot of time working on the policy side of criminal law. And I found that one of the biggest challenges in this space is to try and balance promoting public safety and preventing government overreach. A lot of times you'll realize those two tend to conflict. You want to protect people from each other, but you also want to protect them from unnecessary encounters with the criminal justice system. I see this bill as one of the rare bills that actually manages to do both at the same time. It creates an incentive for people to install the ignition interlock device in their vehicle following an arrest for drunk driving. These devices save lives. They prevent drivers from reoffending and putting innocent drivers on the road, innocent passengers on the road at risk. And for the drivers that install these devices willingly, they send a clear message. I'm holding myself accountable for my mistake, and I won't make it again. In exchange, this bill directs the courts to treat the installation of this device as a mitigating factor. If you're proactively imposing conditions on yourself, you should receive a lesser fine, you should avoid jail time. And if someone takes responsibility for their mistake and takes proactive steps to prevent future mistakes, we want to limit that person's interaction with the criminal justice system. It's the right thing to do. And we've gotten a lot of great feedback on this. We've gotten feedback from the district attorneys on this. we've received a letter of support from a coalition of 10 organizations, and I specifically want to thank Mothers Against Drunk Driving, who were here to support this on Tuesday. I met with 3 of the strongest women I've ever met in my life, 3 of the strongest people that I've ever met in my life on Tuesday. I met with a woman named Stephanie Ronan who'd been hit by a drunk driver and suffered an internal decapitation. The soft tissue remained intact, but her skull separated from her spinal cord, or from her spine. Her leg is currently held together with plates and screws. Her life was dramatically altered by an event that was not her fault. I also met and shared in the pain of 2 other women who lost something even more. They lost their sons to drunk driving incidents. Rosalind Reddick, whose son Elijah Jaden Hawkins Maynor was killed by a drunk driver in October of 2023. Elijah was a senior at UNC. He was a young man who loved his family, who loved the Lord, was active in his church. His family is struggling to make sense of why he was taken from them so early. They're channeling their pain into something productive, though, through their advocacy and through a foundation that they've established in their son's name. I also met with Sean Taylor Keaton, who lost her son, Picasso Elijah Keaton, in July of last year, just about 4 or 5 days after his 27th birthday. Picasso had been a wide receiver at Winston-Salem State University. He was a football coach, he was a mentor, and he too was taken far too young. To his mother, he is forever 27 years old. I was so inspired to speak with Stephanie, with Rosalind, and with Sean about their stories, and to see that they're trying to find meaning in this loss, that they're trying to channel this into something productive, and to see their grace. This isn't a bill about throwing the book at someone, which I think they could understandably feel in their situation, but it's about preventing second occurrences, and to be here to come speak with members of the General Assembly about the physical pain and the emotional toll, the crushing loss that they'd suffered, about the worst days of their lives. That to me was true strength. So I'm honored to run this legislation in memory of Elijah and Picasso, these innocent lives who were taken by drunk drivers here in the Triangle. I'm honored to have the support of Mothers Against Drunk Driving and the other members of our safety coalition. I'd be honored to have your support. I don't say this, I know it's trite to say, but this is good legislation, and I urge you to vote in favor of it. Thank you.
For what purpose, the lady from Durham, Representative Moria, rise?
Thank you. To ask the bill sponsor a question.
Does the gentleman yield to a question?
I do.
He yields.
And thank you for the examples you gave. So if someone is charged with drunk driving, there is a wreck, there is a serious injury or death, would that person be eligible to get this?
No.
Where in here does it say they would not be? It says the vehicle. If the
Gentleman yields to an additional question.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
I'm sorry, you can answer.
Matter of fact, I'm trying to pull up the language right now, and I can't seem to find my copy of the bill. I know I'd worked with staff on this. If the incident results in a wreck causing serious injury, I do not believe they would be eligible for this.
Briefly comment on the bill.
Ladies recognized to debate the bill.
When I first read it, I thought that was the case, but reading on Section B, Section 2(6)(b), the vehicle being operated by the defendant was not involved at the time of the offense in a crash resulting in serious injury or death of a person. So that indicates to me it's the vehicle. So you can get into another vehicle, even if you were charged with drunk driving, there was serious injury or death, you're not using that car, but you're getting an interlock on another car. That may be a drafting error, or maybe I'm reading it wrong, but that's what it says to me. The comment I make is we have had interlocks available only after there has been a conviction. And if there has been intoxilizer 0.15 or over, someone can get an interlock device. Prior to that, part of the penalty is after they've had a breath sample, after there's been probable cause found, they're not eligible to get that license. We're changing this to the day after they're charged with DWI, and maybe with injury or maybe not, they can walk in to bring their car, get an interlock device, and be driving on their way. You know, all we are doing this session is enhancing criminal penalties, and yet for drunk driving, it seems like we're giving them a break. So I'm worried about that. I understand Mothers Against Drunk Driving may be in favor of this, but I see it as a public safety concern on our highways with drunk driving. Thank you.
For what purpose does the lady from Mecklenburg, Representative Budd, arise?
Oh, I was just trying to pass Representative Moore note, but to speak to the bill very briefly.
You're recognized to speak on the bill briefly.
Thank you. So, and on clarity, if you keep going down on page 2, subsection B, it specifically states that the vehicle was not involved at the time of the offense in the crash resulting in the serious injury of death. So that was just a clarification and clearing up any confusion. I will also say that this was one of the most refreshing bills that I have ever enjoyed hearing in J2, and I had told the bill sponsor that. I'm an advocate of finding solutions to problems and incentivizing people to do the right thing. And if just one time somebody takes advantage of this and the difference is the saving of someone's life, then it was well worth it. So thank you for helping those families and bringing this legislation.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Nash, Representative Chesser, arise?
To debate the bill.
You're recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank Representative Sheetsell for his leadership on this. I ran a bill similar to this for second and subsequent DUIs last year. Great policy. This actually works in reducing recidivism with this particular charge and with this offense. To Representative Murray's question, if someone were to be in an accident, switch vehicles, jump in another vehicle, and drive away, that's against the law in and of itself to flee the scene of an accident. And I think that then under the persecution of that, this provision in B would then apply. And so just wanted to provide clarity that fleeing the scene of an accident and getting in another vehicle and leaving is already against the law in other areas.
Further discussion or debate? For what purpose does the lady from further discussion or debate? Hearing none. The question before the House is the passage of House Bill 789 on its second reading. All of those in favor will vote aye. All opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. 99 having voted in the affirmative and 7 in the negative. House Bill 789 passes its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly in North Carolina enacts.
Question for the House is the passage of House Bill 789 on its third reading. All in favor will say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 789 has passed its third reading and will be sent to the Senate. For what purpose does the lady from Mecklenburg, Representative Cunningham, arise?
Mr. Speaker, to be recorded as a yes on that vote.
So ordered.
Thank you.
House Bill 832, the clerk will read.
Representatives Blackwell, Campbell, Cunningham, and Wheatley, House Bill 832, a bill to be entitled Revised School Safety Grant Program. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from Burke, Representative Blackwell, is recognized to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is fairly straightforward a bill. It simply is revising the language that describes the purposes for which these grants can be made, and it is intended to expand that language to encompass some additional programming. I know of no opposition to the bill. I'm glad to ask the question, but I hope the House will provide us with good support on this.
Further discussion or debate? Hearing none. The question for the House is the passage of House Bill 832 on its second reading. All in favor will vote aye. All opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 106 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. House Bill 832 passes its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly in North Carolina enacts.
The question before the House is the passage of House Bill 832 on its third reading. All in favor will say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 832 has passed its third reading and will be sent to the Senate. House Bill 866, the clerk will read.
Representatives Stevens and Budd, House Bill 866, a bill to be entitled Automatic Order Equitable Distribution Claim. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The lady from Surrey, Representative Stevens, is recognized to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thought Representative Budd was going to handle this, but I'll do it.
I'll do it. What this does is put in place an automatic order sort of freezing the status quo. When couples go to get a divorce, not one is able to run out and dispose of all of the assets. It doesn't stop you from continuing to make your mortgage payments and doing the things you do in the ordinary course of business. It just says you can't dispose of those assets so that they're available for distribution later.
Further discussion or debate? Hearing none, the question before the House is the passage of House Bill 866 on its second reading. All in favor will vote aye. All opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Torbett, aye. Miller, aye. Purtle, aye. The clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. 104 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. House Bill 866 has passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Lenore, Representative Humphrey, arise?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to be recorded as a yes vote on House Bill 193.
So ordered. Further discussion or debate? Hearing none, the question before the House is the passage of House Bill 866 on its third reading. All in favor will say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 866 has passed its third reading and will be sent to the Senate. House Bill 875, the clerk will read.
Representatives Willis, Biggs, Pickett, and Runn. House Bill 875, a bill to be entitled DPI to redesign math instruction. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from Union, Representative Willis, is recognized to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Bill 875, and we'll go through this quickly. I know we're standing between folks in lunch.
You certainly are.
This is pretty simple. This follows the letters training, the science of reading that we implemented a couple of years ago. Now we turn our attention to K-8 math. This instructs DPI with some simple instructions to go forward and find us a quality proven curriculum that we can implement to help those students, and I'll stand for questions.
For what purpose does the lady from Wake, Representative Von Hafen, arise?
To set forth an amendment.
You're recognized to send forth the amendment. The clerk will read.
Representative Von Hafen moves to amend the bill.
Representative Von Hafen, you're recognized to explain your amendment.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to Representative Willis. I know he's been working a lot on revising some of the math curriculum in our state, and all this amendment would do is just to delay the effective date of this bill until the 26-27 school year. As you all know, it's May 1st. At least our year-round schools are starting in just a couple of months, and I think DPI has concerns that they won't be able to put this into effect in the 25-26 school year. I don't think there's opposition to the amendment, but thank you so much.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Union, Representative Willis, arise?
To speak to the amendment.
You're recognized to speak on the amendment.
This is a friendly amendment. We do accept that change and understand the challenges that DPI has in the given calendar, and so we will accept the amendment.
The question
ask for your support.
Thank you. Further discussion or debate? The question before the House is the passage of the amendments A1 sent forth by Representative Von Hafen for House Bill 875. All in favor will vote aye. All opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Torbett, aye. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 102 having voted in the affirmative and 2 in the negative. The amendment is adopted. We're back on the bill. Further discussion or debate? Hearing none, all in, excuse me. Hearing none. The question before the House is the passage of House Bill 875 on its second reading. All in favor will vote aye. All opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Excuse me. Torbett, aye. Clerk will lock machine, record the vote. 104 having voted in the affirmative and 1 in the negative. House Bill 875 has passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The question before the House is the passage of House Bill 875 on its third reading. All in favor will say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 875 has passed its third reading and will be sent to the Senate. House Bill 908, the clerk will read.
Representative Green, House Bill 908, a bill to be entitled Modify Civil Commitment Hearing Procedures. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from Avery, Representative Green, is recognized to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill closes the gap between when a criminal defendant is found incapable of proceeding in a criminal case because of mental health issues and violent crimes, and when they're released from civil commitment from a facility after the criminal charges are dismissed because of their incapacity. The bill clarifies that the district attorney, where the crime was committed, can elect to represent the state in the civil commitment process and have any hearing or rehearing in the county where the crime was committed. This preserves local control and full public access to how the case is disposed of. It ensures the victims of these crimes are notified, and it allows them the ability to be heard. The language reflects an agreement between the Conference of District Attorneys and the Department of Health and Human Services. It balances justice, the defendant's rights, and the crime victim's rights, and so I would ask for your support of this bill.
Ladies and gentlemen, the House, the previous bill 875 will be engrossed and sent to the Senate. Further discussion or debate? For what purpose does the lady from Durham, Representative Moria, rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did have an amendment on that.
You're recognized to send forth the amendment. The clerk will read.
I'm sorry. Happy to withdraw it.
The amendment is withdrawn.
Thank you.
Further discussion or debate? For what purpose does the gentleman from Avery, Representative Green, arise?
Yes, and I appreciate that, Representative Maury. It was a friendly amendment, and we had initially talked about that, but talked about some issues that it might create. We're going to be exploring those issues a little bit further as this moves through the Senate and see if any changes need to be made there.
Further discussion or debate? Hearing none, the question before the House is the passage of House Bill 908 on its second reading. All in favor will vote aye, all opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 104 having voted in the affirmative, none in the negative. House Bill 908 has passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Further discussion or debate? Representative Torbett, aye. Second reading. The question for the House is the passage of House Bill 908 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. All opposed will say no. All opposed will say aye. All for say aye. Excuse me. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 908 has passed its third reading and will be sent to the Senate. House Bill 913, the clerk will read.
Representative Brody, House Bill 913, a bill to be entitled Liability, Unfair, Deceptive Development Actions. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from Union, Representative Brody, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This is a bill to provide additional recourse for those who, against those local governments who refuse to follow the law. And basically, it adds an addition to the standard, I guess, what layman's call the standard lawsuit, where it would allow by finding upon the court that the court can award damages. This deals with Section 160D, which is the development section, and many times there ends up being a lot of money involved. So, but it's the court's decision. So I ask for your support, or we'll answer any questions.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Wake, Representative Rubin, arise?
To debate the bill.
The other gentleman from Wake, Representative Longest, I'll get to you. Gentleman's recognized.
Could have been either of us. I really appreciate what the bill is trying to do, and I think it's fair to say that local governments should follow the law, and they absolutely shouldn't be deceptive or unfair in the way that they do it. I guess the concern I want to raise is the extremeness of the penalties, because you have like a 10x, 10 times damages provision in here, which is really unique in the law. I can't think of other areas in the law where you would provide tenfold damages on something. And what I'm worried about is that it creates this idea of government by fear, because you've got local governments now who have to worry that, not that they're being unfair, but that they're going to be accused of that if they don't do what the developer wants. And it's kind of a one-way ratchet. If they do what the developer wants, they're probably fine. If they don't, they get the sword. And it's always hanging over them. And so they'll have these lawsuits, and I think there may be better ways to address this with local governments, and I'm certainly afraid that you're going to have governments that say, well, we don't really think this is a good idea for bona fide reasons, but if we say no, we're at risk of these immense damages, and so we're going to have to feel coerced to do this. I don't think we want that to come to our local governments, and we don't want to put them in that position. So that is the concern I would raise and why I'm against the bill. Thanks.
For what purposes? The other gentleman from Wake, Representative Longest, rise.
To speak very briefly on the bill.
To recognize to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I would urge you to vote against this bill because I really see the provisions that are added here as sort of a lawyer's employment act. It attempts to mirror in some ways the Unfair or Deceptive Trade Practices Act, which protects our consumers. That statute includes treble damages, and it includes fee shifting if the plaintiff of the suit succeeds at bringing the lawsuit. Now, this language does include a requirement that there be a finding of to get those damages, unfair or deceptive acts by the local government. But what that language means in this context is not at all clear. I would think that, like in the UDTPA context, it's a very fact-specific inquiry, and that itself is going to invite litigation even more so. The attorney's going to could get fees whether or not they win the lawsuit. In UDTPA claims, you have to win the lawsuit in order to recover reasonable attorney's fees. Here, the court can award those even if you're not prevailing. And finally, like Representative Rubin mentioned, the 10x punitives is a really high level in general in our laws, and since the 90s, it's been 3 times the amount of damages that you could recover. Certainly, we could have a greater discussion about whether that's an appropriate level for punitive damages. Maybe there are arguments that, in general, caps on punitive damages should be removed. But doing it in the context of solely this type of action, I think is going to impose a huge burden on our local governments, and I'd ask you to vote against.
What purpose, gentleman from Union, Representative Brody, rise.
Just speak on it briefly a second time.
Gentleman's recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the issue of the amount that was always up in the air, and we just got real close to crossover, but willing to work with somebody on that if you wanted to do that. Just for the record, though, that sometimes these things can get very expensive, and local governments, mind you, there are 512 of them in here, everyone very independently minded, so we have to deal with all of those, and the vast majority of local governments just do things just fine. It's occasionally you have some outliers, and unfortunately the nature of our laws, we make laws to address the outliers, and everybody else gets caught in the middle of it. So I ask for your support on this, and just with the assurance that we can work on this as we go forward. Thank you.
Further discussion or debate? Seeing none, the question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 913 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Reeves, no. Torbett, aye. Clerk will lock machine and record the vote. The House 67 having voted in the affirmative and 39 in the negative. The House Committee Substitute to House Bill 913 having passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 913 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the House Committee Substitute to House Bill 913, having passed its third reading, will be ordered sent to the Senate. House Bill 971, the clerk will read.
Representatives Blackwell, Torbett, Willis, and Reeder. House Bill 971, a bill to be entitled Career Development Adjustment. The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from Burke, Representative Blackwell, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Career development plans are individualized plans that are created for each student, and the idea is to establish a plan through middle and high school for their graduation and pursuit of whatever career they choose, be that college or not college. Currently, they have these plans created in the 8th grade, and then they revisit it again in the 10th grade. This bill would create a 12-school pilot in which these plans would be created in the 7th grade and revisited annually. The idea is to see if doing it a year earlier and revisiting it on an annual basis might help get the adjustments that are needed more quickly so that people end up graduating with what they desire to go into and being better prepared. I'm not aware of any opposition to this and would ask the House to endorse this legislation with a yes vote.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Durham, Representative Hawkins, rise?
To ask the bill sponsor a question.
Representative Blackwell, gentleman yield.
I do.
He yields.
One of the sections talks about the students' IEP teams and the inclusion for those who have disabilities. First, thank you for doing that. But the second piece is I want to make sure that every student, no matter their ability, will be engaged in the process for this outline. A school cannot opt out a kid because they may be in a self-contained classroom or they may have extreme abilities, disabilities that would otherwise preclude them from having workforce opportunity. I want to make sure that this is requiring those students to also have the opportunity for post-graduation programs and career opportunities too.
The intention is that there would be one for each student. The inclusion of the IEP team in the case of some students with disabilities is to get input from them to try to better assure ourselves that the plan developed is appropriate for that particular disability or that particular individual. But there's no intention to exclude anyone, and that certainly there's nothing here that authorizes the exclusion of anyone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Wake, Representative Jones, rise?
To ask the bill sponsor a couple, 3 questions.
Representative Blackwell, does the gentleman yield to a series of questions?
I'm happy to do so.
He yields.
Well, thank you. At one point in my life, I was married to a teacher, and she busted her behind doing a lot of extra stuff that got foisted on her by the system beyond her classroom duties. And this is a very good idea, but are you adding any extra counselors or other support staff to the system to help carry this out? Because I suspect strongly it's going to fall on that classroom teacher. So that's my first question.
Gentleman asks an excellent question. I think the responsibility will largely fall on counselors within the school. One of the reasons for doing the pilot is to sort of assess from an operational standpoint what kind of time demands, personnel demands arise out of this approach. It may be that we will, before we get through with the budget process, that we will determine that we need some funding associated with this that might be included in the budget, although things are pretty tight this year. But I think what the concern you're expressing is one that we're going to need to address. The proposal's got a ways to go. We're going to have to negotiate with the Senate over this. But my intention is to address that, but it's not specifically addressed in this bill.
Thank you. That's one question. The second question is kind of, may I do another one, Mr. Speaker?
The gentleman has yielded to a series of questions, so he may continue forth as long as there's a question mark at the end.
Okay, thank you. I'll do that. The other question I had is, once you get the information, are there any plans to assist these students along the way that may need additional help, if they need help? I assume this is a plan to kind of help them, and they review it each year, so that implies that if there's some adjustments need to be made, there may be some intervention. So I was just wanted to ask about that.
My vision is certainly that that's the purpose of these annual evaluations, to find that if somebody's falling short and being prepared to get to that career plan that they want to complete, that we do something as soon as we determine they're falling short to try to make up that difference. If you determine they're falling short because they're never going to be able to do it, then you maybe revise the plan to say, hey, we may need to plan on doing something differently. But if somebody's falling behind in math, if it's in communication skills, if they need to retake something in order to be eligible to go forward to be in a particular career, the idea is to not wait 2 or 3 years and then find out, well, gosh, if we just known 2 years ago, we might could have taken steps to correct that. So that's certainly my vision of how this ought to work.
Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Further discussion or debate? Seeing none, the question before the House is the passage of House Bill 971 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Torbett, aye. Representative Baker, lady wish to be recorded. Clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. 104 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. House Bill 971 having passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enact.
Question before the House is the passage of House Bill 971 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 971, having passed its third reading, will be ordered sent to the Senate. Members, that's it for today's calendar. If the members will look back to the top of the calendar, House Bill 306, which we began to debate, the House Bill 306 and that amendment will be removed from today's calendar and will be calendared for Tuesday. Notices and announcements. For what purpose? The gentleman from Alamance, Representative Verdell, rise.
For an announcement.
Gentleman is recognized for an announcement.
Just a reminder, regulatory reform will be meeting in 1228, 15 minutes after session. 4 bills. We'd like to get in and get out. Thank you.
While we're doing the announcements, if the pages will go ahead and come forward and line up in front of the dais so we can recognize you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Columbus, Representative Jones, arise?
For an announcement.
Gentleman's recognized for an announcement.
Representative Riddell, we're going to push you back just a little bit. Republicans are going to caucus in 1228 immediately following. The faster you get there, the faster you get to leave. Immediately after session.
Representative Jones and Riddell, if the gentlemen want to talk and make sure Representative Riddell can make an announcement as to a time before we walk out. For what purpose does the gentleman from Davidson, Representative Potts, arise?
For announcements.
Gentleman's recognized for an announcement.
The House HHS Appropriation Chair, we're going to meet in 20 minutes, but now we'll meet in 20 minutes after we get out of caucus. I believe it said it was going to be a quick one, so we'll see. Thank you.
Chair anticipates that your committee meeting will probably take place in about 30 minutes then for those members who are on the committee. For what purpose does the gentleman from Alamance, Representative Riddell, arise?
Another announcement, Mr. Speaker.
Give it a shot.
Reg reform will meet 10 minutes after the Republican caucus. Thank you.
Probably about 30 minutes from now if you're on that committee. Any further notices or announcements? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and recognize our pages. Pages, thank you for being with us this week. You've been here a good week to get to see a lot of debate, probably as much debate as any group of pages get to see during a given week here at the General Assembly. So you lucked out, or maybe not in that respect, but we appreciate you being with us today. Hope you enjoyed your time with us. If any of us can help you with anything, let us know. Members, if you will, join me in thanking our pages for their service. Madam Clerk, if you will, read the name of our pages this week.
Richard Anthony, Cabarrus County, sponsor, Representative Brian Echeverria. Neaton Bali, Wake County, sponsor, Representative Eric Ager. Josh Brown, Franklin County, sponsor, Representative Matthew Winslow. Deborah DeJesus Perez, Robeson County, sponsor, Representative Jared Lowry. Cole Edwards, Nash County, sponsor, Representative Alan Chesser. Savannah Godza, Wake County, sponsor, Representative Julie Von Hafen. Isha Jah, Wake County, sponsor, Representative Paul Scott. Sam Johnson, Carteret County, sponsor, Representative Steve Tyson. Lizzie Keeter, Halifax County, sponsor, Representative Shelley Willingham. Connor Miller, Mitchell County, sponsor, Representative Dudley Green. Amai Pierce, Halifax County, sponsor, Representative Rodney D. Pierce. William Smallwood, Davidson County, sponsor, Representative Sam Watford. Isabella Smith, Onslow County, sponsor, Representative Wyatt Gable.
Thank you again for being with us, Pages. You may return to your post, and the chair understands you're late for lunch a little bit, so the chair will release you to go get something to eat. Thank y'all for being with us. The members, just a couple of housekeeping items. As to budget, Senate Bill 257, entitled the 2025 Appropriations Act, was received from the Senate Tuesday and was referred to committee. The plan is for that bill to go through Appropriations, Finance, and then Pensions, and skipping the Rules Committee. The chair's informed the minority leader of that. And of course, our rules require bills to go through the Rules Committee. Historically, we have not put the budget through the Rules Committee. But we do intend again to put it through those three committees that I mentioned. So without objection, the chair intends to waive Rule 32D regarding the budget just going through the Rules Committee. Any objection to that? Hearing none, so ordered. Members, next week, schedule-wise, chair anticipates votes on Tuesday and Wednesday. Chair hopes that everything gets done on Wednesday to where we don't have to have votes Thursday, but hold Thursday open. If it's necessary to hold votes on Thursday, then we will do that. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and hope that it doesn't have to be Thursday. Obviously, watch your committee meeting notices and emails because the chair anticipates several committees meeting early next week. And if you have questions about that, see the chair. For what purpose is the lady from Wake, Representative Ball, rise?
For a point of personal privilege.
Ladies recognized for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know all of us on this floor have people who stand with us when we're running for office, coming down here all the time, whether it's a children, spouse, mother, father, neighbor, whatever. And I'd ask you to stand and join me in saying happy birthday to my husband, and while I'm not able to be with him today. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Buncombe, Representative Turner, arise?
Inquiry of the chair.
Gentleman may state his inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker, just for the calendar for next week, do you anticipate voting sessions to be at the times where they have historically been? So that would be 4 o'clock Tuesday, 1 o'clock Wednesday, or do you anticipate changes to that?
So the answer is yes, the chair does anticipate that. I understand the gentleman's probably asking for drive time purposes on Tuesday perhaps. So if members will, watch your inbox. If you're not notified otherwise, then at least on Tuesday, it would be at the typical time. The chair needs to take a look at where the bills are in the process right now to determine whether we may need to vote a little bit earlier on Tuesday. But I'll make sure that that decision is made pretty soon, and an email is sent out notifying folks this week so that you can make plans for next week. And of course, within those days, we may have multiple sessions. But again, I understand most important one being, when's the first voting session going to be next week so folks can get here. So if it's going to be an unusual time, you'll get an email to that effect sometime this week. Well, Representative Ball, lady, continue to wish to be recognized. For further notices or announcements, seeing none, the gentleman from Wayne, Representative Bell, is recognized for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House to now adjourn to reconvene Monday, May 5th at 10 a.m., subject to the standard stipulations set forth in Rule 15.1.
Representative Bell moves, seconded by Representative Jones, that the House do now adjourn to reconvene Monday, May 5th at 10 a.m., subject to the standard stipulations set forth in Rule 15.1. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the House is now adjourned.